Dr. Jones served as a program officer at the National Science Foundation and has led the Graduate Research Fellows Program for them and a few other programs for them as well. As you see in the program, he is the George and Elizabeth Pickett Endowment Professor. He also is the Associate Dean for Graduate Studies at the University of Texas, Arlington. Dr. Jones helped get this particular conference off the ground back in 2010. He has been very influential in the research area of radio frequency identification. That's one of the common areas that he and I have. He's worked as an industrial engineer in private industry. And of course, he's landed here in the University of Texas, Arlington, and has been in the academic arena for quite some time. He has his degrees from Texas A&M and University of Houston. And he is also the director of several Homeland Security centers at the University of Texas, Arlington. So he's a busy, busy man and has written several books as well. So with that, Erick, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Perkins. Well, I want to thank everyone for making the afternoon. With that introduction, I don't know when I go to sleep. Anyway, I actually I think it's hopefully this is the afternoon session. You had your lunch, and so you've woken up, and so hopefully this will be interesting. So let me share my screen. Dr. Perkins, do I have the screen? Let's see if I can share my screen. I'm going to choose this. And once I cut my full screen, I won't be able to see myself. So can you guys, Judy, can you let me know if you can see it?
We can see it.
Okay, great.
Yes,
great.
Erick. Yes, I'm sorry. I was on mute. Sorry about that.
Okay, it's okay. And so, so a couple of things. Since I've left the federal government, I can actually talk about how to win the fellowship. The previous years, I had to talk about the fellowship. And so I bring this up because I think this aligns with this day one activities in the rotation. Because number one is not only do you write the fellowship, they're competitive and you want to win the fellowship. And so I'll try to put it in some context of why go to graduate school. So a little bit, I'll give a little bit, this is the outline. This is actually the answer to the exam. I said, what are the 5 keys to success? So if you remember these 5 keys, and you forget everything else, you would be prepared to go, and win fellowship money and also do well, hopefully, in graduate school. But again, the 5 keys to success: understand the history, know your timeline, write understandable research, tell a motivating story, and get the right support letters. So a little bit about myself. The most important part are the 3 letters to the right. Where are my fellow fraternity brothers? Anyway, I think that one thing that I can share with you guys is, I've done quite a few things, but the truth is, it's about network, about meeting, working with the right people, and number one, having a goal. So when I was in industry, I went from engineer to executive manager. So, I think that there's a lot of things you can accomplish in your life, but you have to set those goals. And I think one of the best goals I set at an early age was getting a second degree, a graduate degree. Actually, the master's and then on to the PhD. So a little bit about myself. Right now, I have a research lab. I have several, but the one I'm always excited about is RAID Labs, because I have more toys and equipment and materials in the lab. Also, I have a great executive team. We have some visiting scientists. I brought 2 scientists in from HBCUs. Felicia is from Fort Valley. And then we had Marcia, was actually, I want to say she was at Xavier. I think she's now at Tulane. Anyway, and then also I have some international students and graduate students. And then I have a lot of workers. What I mean by that is you bring in funds. Part of the idea is to fund students. I say this because we're going to talk about getting money, but there is a benefit to working with a researcher who has money. Now, I'll be frank, when just, I know there's some discussion about you get to do whatever you want. Well, if you work for me, you don't. But again, we'll talk about different fundings and different mechanisms and how these things work out. And again, I implore you to think about when you're coming to graduate school, you're going to be deep in knowledge, but you also have to think about what societal impactful research you're going to participate in. And that's part of a discussion today too. And I also think that one of the leveraging points you have in your graduate application is you're coming from a diverse and underserved population. And it really needs to be thought through in your application, how you're not only part of that community, but how you're contributing to that community. And this is my Fulbright international grant there, where I spent the 7 months for 3 years in Mexico. And also I think about my current research where I'm actually looking at COVID-19 in communities, well, I'd say Black communities and Latino communities, because that's where people won't take the dang vaccine. But the last couple of years, I've been doing research in the area, and when you think about graduate school, there's a little bit on the research side, how are you gonna make an impact? It's not just taking classes and escaping them like undergrad. And I heard Dr. Bobby talk about that today. It's a lot harder, and you have to kind of think about what you're going to do. So this is my success story. Larry should like this slide. All of these are Huskers in some level. A couple of them went to get their doctorates at UTA, but these are all the Huskers. So there were Black people in Nebraska when I was there, and I recruited them. I paid them a lot. So I was wondering, you guys at Tennessee State should see Dr. Catherine Armwood. Dr. Mosby came from Clark, Atlanta. Maurice was from Prairie View. And then Tobias, though, came from a tribal college. And then when I ran the program, the Science Foundation, the Graduate Fellowship Program, there was always a question from Congress that actually, did African Americans actually win the grant? And so here are the 3 at the NSB conference that I could prove. Judy, you're laughing, but they actually won the fellowship. And again, it's one of the hardest fellowships to win, but I was just pretty proud of the fact that we could show that people win this fellowship. So let me get into the discussion of, number one, what are the 5 keys to success on graduate fellowships, especially competitive fellowships? I would say number one, understand your history, know the timeline, write understandable research, tell a motivating story, and get to the right support letters. So I'm gonna start off with understanding your history. So one thing that's been talked about right now is, why should you go to graduate school? What are going to be the education requirements? I listened into some of the talks today, and what skills are you going to gain? What are going to be the salary ranges? I think that is something that this conference is providing to you, but also helping you to kind of realize that they're going to be the next generation of work, opportunities are going to require specific skill sets. And here are the ones that graduate students, when you graduate as a graduate student, if you don't flunk out, because there is a reality, if you come in playing around, got 10 jobs, I hear people want to do 10 jobs and 5 degrees in 5 minutes. You got to take this pretty seriously, because these are the things that people, when they hire an advanced degree, they're looking for. They're looking for research skill development, communication skills, professionalism, leadership and management skills, leadership in running international research teams, and also not plagiarizing a whole bunch of stuff. You have to be able to create original research and original documentations. And then what are the career opportunities that explode with the graduate degree? They explode. You see this chart? You now, with that graduate degree, you're not just taking the job and your company hopefully pays for graduate school. You get a realm of opportunities that is unmatched and unparalleled. And so you jump into that, I call it from the 50,000 to 60,000 range to 75, 90, $100,000 range, but not because you look good and got a check mark. It's because you really have to have these new skill sets. And I implore you to, when you go to graduate school, to really focus on that. So I'm going to show you a little bit about how to get money to go to grad school and when you're in graduate school. This is a continuum. And the continuum shows that while you're a junior or senior, you're applying for fellowships to go to grad school. After your first year, there will be other, if you're successful with high GPA, there will be other opportunities to actually get graduate funding, internships, co-ops. And also when you finish your coursework, where you go work at the national labs. But what I will share with you, the further you go down the pipeline, the harder it is to win the money. The easiest money to win right now is if you're a junior and senior undergraduate. If you've graduated and you're trying to come back, I'm sorry, there's a higher bar for you applying for graduate school because you graduated and you went to industry. There's an expectation, you know something in industry, that you worked in industry and that you can write better applications. So I'm just going to put that out there because I know some people are saying, oh, well, I go work for a couple of years. Well, the easier, the longer you wait to get funding, the harder and more competitive it becomes. So I just kind of wanted to pop that out there because as you're thinking about these career decisions, where you want to go, right now, I think this program is set up to put you in the best possible light to get all the money. To get all the money while you're a junior or senior. Okay, Nova timeline. So I'm gonna talk about funding. Marcus talked about the different types of funding, but I'm gonna say that, at the university, we have research assistantships. There's some funded by researchers like me. If I go out there and work my behind out and bring in millions of dollars, if you work for me, you gotta do what I want you to do. And so it's typically funded through a proposal process, federal pass-throughs. There's also teaching assistantships, but those generally go to PhD students. And sometimes it goes to masters. But teaching assistantships are the state gives funds to some schools to allow them to get support in teaching, whether it's grading papers or even some actually run labs, lab and recitation sessions. But you do have state required teaching requirements and you have to actually work. I mean, it's 20, 25-hour work. And then finally, there's graduate fellowships. What are graduate fellowships? These are competitive grants that you apply for through national competitions, sometimes state, sometimes even at the university. So here's the types of fellowships. You complete directly for the award. The national ones are portable. You can go from school to school. Universities don't like to hear that. But if you get funding, you can, based on the type of fellowship, you could take it to another institution. And then here are the ones that I'm going to strongly, like Marcus left you a slide, but here are the ones that you need to think about applying for as right now, each and every one of you qualify for applying for all of these different types of scholarships. I would Google them if I were you, because it's real. Great money. Institutional awards. Now, there are times where you're coming to a school like University of Nebraska-Lincoln or, right, Larry, where some programs may have funds for you. Maybe. I know when I was at Nebraska, we were trying to get people, first year funds, I could cover a graduate student. Again, that's still competitive. Money has to be there. And the university and the college and the program has to be willing to give you those funds. Sometimes they're called GAN, Graduate Area of National Needs. Sometimes they're called NRT. But again, this is where the university or the program has reached out for funds nationally, brought those funds in, and they have those funds available for you as a graduate student. And then I'm very focused on saying there's a thing called the LSAP. I'm not sure if Nebraska's part of it, but I do think the MATC Center is part of it. So there's some additional funds. I funded a program where we were looking at the top 20 schools win so many of the federal grants that I actually required those schools to actually come through LSAP and provide a workshop on how to win fellowship. And so I did that at something called the SREB. Why I bring it's so important is because by me funding that, we were able to move the number of people to actually win the fellowship grant, especially for African Americans who were at 1% to maybe we moved it to 7% in 2 years. And so I think it's important that you really understand how you want to apply for these national fellowships and how you can be competitive. Why bother? Well, the money's great. Like Marcus said, I won't even reiterate that. I used to say, if you don't win a grant, you shouldn't go to grad school. But you got it. I think grad school transcends that. But the reality is, the funds allow you to focus specifically on graduate school. A lot of people that try to do it, I have so many of my friends, my fraternity brothers who are engineers, and they try to go simultaneously with working and they flunked right out. And I strongly believe you should go for an engineering master's, because a lot of times in the MBA programs are extremely long, and the engineering masters tend to be, for me, from my experience, they make more money because everybody is an MBA. Engineering masters is not common. So that's a perspective. That's Dr. Jones' perspective. I don't want to make anybody mad. I know some presenters said something else. So what I'm going to do now is kind of narrow in on the GRP, because the Graduate Research Fellowship Program from the Science Foundation is the hardest to win. So if you apply these principles to any other fellowship, you'll be successful. Disclaimer, since I don't work at the government anymore, this is my opinion, even though it's, so I still have to put that out there, Judy. I still got my clearance, so. Okay, so what is the Graduate Fellowship Program? The goal is to actually get more students in the United States with federal tax dollars to actually go to graduate school. Because we know that underserved populations who don't go to graduate school tend to have less career options because of unconscious bias in the workforce, and also because their perceived need of an additional knowledge base. So you look at the fellowship, the Graduate Research Fellowship is to actually produce 42 Nobel laureates, 450 people on the national academies, and 50,000 fellows. Now, why am I keep saying is the easiest time to win this fellowship is right now. If you wait until you're in graduate school, the statistics are not good for anybody. But I am saying undergrad and the time to apply, really is at this point of the competition. So when I was there, I had to kind of really work on, who was winning and who wasn't winning. I still am under a little bit of gag order, but the point I make to you is that by taking these principles, your chances of winning goes up higher, and also the ability to actually apply for multiple, because if you do GRP, then you got the DoD one, then you got the NASA one, and you wrote one grant and you wrote one application, but it goes to all those federal agencies. So again, you see the success rates. I'm saying to you guys, I can put you at 50% by the end of this presentation, but you have to pay attention a little bit, right? And so again, the awards for a 5-year award, 3 years of the funding, but you got 2 years off, and you can supplement them with international experiences and also internships. Now the eligibility, because I'm going to be specific on eligibility, because even if you're not eligible for the GRP, I think you should still apply because you get feedback. Early career, undergrad and grad, pursuing research, MS or PhD, science and engineering, enrolled in an accredited institution by the US by the fall. So you have to identify which school you want to go to. And so as you can see, technically, even though it's one program, it's got 4 competitions. 4 competitions. Seniors and bachelors who have not yet enrolled in graduate school. Now, I will tell you, a lot of people who are working, if you graduate and you take one graduate class on the side, you can't be in group 1. Group 1 is the easiest to actually win. It's the one where we moved all the money to 50% of the money. And quite frankly, if you're going to work for a year, work for a year. Don't take any classes, because if you don't take classes, you can then apply under group 1. Okay, then you got first-year graduate students. And a lot of first-year graduate students who work in national labs can publish more than 5 papers. You're really walking into serious competition. Number 4 is for veterans. If you graduate and you go into the military and you're in the military for 4 years or a couple of years and you come out, number 4 is for that. It really was designed for veterans, where you come back after doing your service and you apply. Usually we look for a story of a government service for that one. Now again, you see that square, that green, that's where MATC's at. Green is good. And that's to me, if you apply in that order, your probability of winning is a lot higher. Okay, so you keep on. Okay, so here are the fields. Now, why it's important for me to talk about the fields. I heard someone say, oh, I can apply. I really want an MBA, but I'm going to apply for an engineering degree. Well, I really want to be in law school, but I'm going to apply for a master's in engineering. Well, that's a no right here. See that stop? That's a no. And I'm going to tell you this, as a graduate dean, that's a no. Number one, you come in engineering trying to do business school, unless very few classes will you survive in the engineering curriculum. You are engineer trained. So I speak strongly of this. I have friends who are PhDs in the business school, and they hate me. We fight, we drink, and we fight about this. America does not pay for no more lawyers and no more MBAs. If you want to do that and you want to go on the stock market, you need to go. There's a whole other program that you can go apply for. This is me. I wasn't this mean before I went to the government. Now I've come back from the government. No, America does not need any more lawyers and no more MBAs. It needs engineers, and that's what it's paying for. So if you want to play around with it, you can, but I'm saying you won't get any money for it. And MBAs, people take out 200 grand in loan debt and can't get a job. This is real. Okay. All right, Dr. Perkins, I'm not with the government. I can say what I want. Say no to the timeline. And I'm gonna pick up the pace, guys, here a little bit. When you apply for some of these fellowships, they take time to write. It takes time to meet people. It takes time to reach out and talk to graduate schools. It takes time to reach researchers. So I'm putting out there a tentative timeline. This is not something you do the night before. This is not something that you have your advisor write for you. Because I used to have a lot of, at HBCUs, we had a lot of faculty try to write this for their student and then they lose. And I get cussed out. And when I show up to Spelman, Harvard, Southern for a review, I get cussed out. I'm letting you know, do not let your advisor write this. You need to write it. There are quite a bit of examples on the web. You do need to get a reference letter, but I'm going to talk about reference letters. You can't just get any old reference letter that form letter. It doesn't work for the fellowship program. Okay. And here are some dates. Now, these dates are 2019. So I haven't pulled up the new announcement, but they're about the same. And I'll try to send the updated dates after the presentation. Now, let's get into understandable research. Now, I know what's funny about this is you guys are undergrads and you're like, wait a minute, I hated writing. That's why I'm going to work. That's why I became an engineer. Well, let me share with you a secret. When you go out into the real world, whether you go to grad school or whether you go get a job, you are now going to be expected to write and communicate very clearly. I know that those class projects that you kind of blew off and somebody else wrote, this is where I think it's a huge opportunity to actually work on improvement as you apply for this fellowship. Number one, you're going to be asked to write a personal statement, and you're going to be asked to then write a research statement. Then you're going to be asked to upload your transcripts and also 3 letters of reference. I'm very specific when I talk about writing. Your personal story. Now, this isn't your memoirs. This is not you telling everybody that you made it with the degree. It's basically going to kind of channel what activities you want to accomplish with a degree or with the degree of choice. Dr. Rowlett, today's presentation about the future of transportation, I would be all over LiDAR if I was your age, really, with Elon Musk and the cars that, basically autonomous travel. But I think that whatever you're writing, you have to write in the context of winning the fellowship. Do not write about my mom grew up on a plantation and walked in the snow. You only got 1 page. It's really, here are the things that I've done in my undergrad and that I think are important and I think that may move to the future and that I want to explore as a graduate student. I'm saying that if you don't feel comfortable writing that, I think you should get with your advisor. I think you should talk to your mentors because this is really what it's about. And honestly, if you do this, it will make you actually like graduate school. You come into graduate school without a plan, you're going to flunk out. It's hard. I think this is really important. The other thing I'll say in the personal statement, coming from an underserved population, the benefit of coming from an underserved population will be lost on you if you don't talk about how you're giving back to that population. Do you participate in your church? Do you go to Boys and Girls Club? And how are you giving back based on what you learned from being in your undergrad experience? Did you tutor? Did you help in a tutoring program? I'm an alpha. Did you go to the big boys and big brothers and big sisters and talk about teaching calculus? So the reality is that I've seen more non-minorities out minorities in these applications. Now I'm saying that in a nice way, but just being part of a minoritized population doesn't mean you're contributing. And so part of that personal statement is, how are you contributing to the minority population that you may come from? And I think if you're not contributing, you should think about it, because that's a personalized component of an application that people are looking for. So again, I'm being very specific. If you just put I'm US African American or I'm from Lagos, that's not good enough. What have you done based on that heritage to help, and what are you going to continue to do in graduate school that's important? It could be part of the NSF chapter, it could be some of these things, but that has to be weaved into how you're doing that with the things that you learn in your engineering curriculum. Okay, tell a motivating story. In each of the personal statement and also the research statement, they're looking for two things called intellectual merit and broader impacts. And again, I want to stop there. In both the personal statement and intellectual merits, I strongly recommend that you write intellectual merit, underline it, talk about it. Broader impacts, underline it, talk about it. Because whenever the reviewers are looking for it, don't make them look for it. That key alone, I've already doubled your chance of winning. Because we got professors that don't do that. but anyway, just make sure that these two things are in your statement. And if you don't understand that, get with your mentor. But I'm saying that these two things, 50% of students don't put that in, and they don't look. They just kind of get discounted. So let's get to 4, telling a motivating story. So I talked about you're addressing intellectual merit and broader impacts, but here are some things in the personal statement. Again, how did you become involved? What made you, when did you decide you were on the cusp of changing your major and you decided I'm gonna muscle through and be an engineer? When was that day in class? Did you play with Tonka toys when you were 3? What makes you want to be an engineer? Now, this is not the time to have a career crisis. It's not the time to say, yeah, but I really wish I had been a history major. This is not what that is. This is not your memoirs. You are telling a story that somebody wants to give you some money. And what they want to hear is that they're investing in the next generation of engineers, not lawyers, not MDs down the road. Not that one day I'm gonna meet Elon Musk and write an app. It's tell the story, okay? Because when me saying this to you moves your possibility of winning up 25%. Because you can't tell your memoirs. They don't want your memoirs. They want you to tell them why they should invest in you for an engineering or science graduate degree. Research statement. Now, this is kind of tricky, and a lot of the faculty are going to be mad at me. Generally, the top schools have a person that's, they go to a professor who's won the career award, and it has an ERC, or it has an active NSF grant. And I'm saying NSF because it's NSF competition. If it was DOD, it would be DOD competition. If it's NIH, NIH. But you want to find someone who has an active grant, because the reality is they will know how in the modern world to write a research plan. Now, again, I think that if you don't have that, you can find it on the web, and you don't want to insult any faculty, right? I'm just saying, because they still got your life in their hand. But to an extent, the research statement has to be crafted in such a way that people feel you've done some homework on how to write a research statement. It also should talk about what kind of equipment you've worked with and that you hope to work with. This institution has, Nebraska has a transportation center. Dr. Rylett's center has over multi-million dollars of equipment and transportation. They have a transportation lab that shows us road patterns. They're doing concrete. That is the expectation that people are looking for, that it's not, I'll take some classes and maybe I'll pass. It has to be something that, hey, I'm thinking about these institutions or future institutions because they have this specific tool. I've learned some things in my undergraduate, but these are the things I hope to learn in graduate school. These are the activities that I hope to do, and here are the objectives I hope to meet if I'm funded. So again, I know that sounds a little quirky, but I'm going to say part of your recommendation is go meet some faculties as they write the reference letter that can do this. Now, what I'll tell you is you got Dr. Rylett with a whole research center. Dr. Perkins is turning down research money. I think Dr. Vasquez has a grant that he's trying to get working on. So you have, and I'm sure, Edgar, look, you have your mentors on campus today in this team that could talk about research plan writing. But part of it is it can't be willy-nilly. It has to be really well written. Now, telling a story to someone who cares. Now, you heard me just say, don't write your memoirs. It's not the time to tell people that, stuff that you wouldn't tell your mom, right? I mean, you're really trying to get funding and you want to tell the story within the context of that. So again, I talked about intellectual merit. Here's some specific things. And these are the things that you will actually be measured upon. One thing about academic performance, if you don't have the 4.0, don't say, I don't have a 4.0. Make them look for it. Say that I started off my academic career initially not as focused but I've ended with great focus. You don't say, man, I had to repeat this class 8 times. We're trying to put our best foot forward, okay? And again, your reference letters, and I'm gonna talk about that last. I'm trying to make sure my time is good here. Broader impact. Number one, I like the idea that you're from a minoritized community and you're giving back to that community through your engineering or through your science. And also that, reality is that your future plans towards engineering. My future plans are to, I want to meet Elon Musk. I want to, your future plans have to tie in to some technology or research or trends going to the program that you're looking at. And again, I would straight jack Dr. Rylett's presentation this morning if I was you guys, because it's right there, right? But I also think the keynote speaker last week that talked about, underserved, the one that's the Biden administration. I think he's talked about social justice along with engineering. That was pretty interesting. I don't know how I would phrase it, but I think that would be one to look towards too. If you just don't have anything, I would say, because it's the agency you're looking at, for this one is NSF, National Science Foundation. Go look at their 10 big ideas. I would be like, just jacking it in there. Hey, quantum leap. I'm gonna do a quantum leap with civil. The windows to the future. I know it sounds quirky, but ultimately the reviewers are gonna tie their review document to some of these activities, right? And so I'm strongly, and if you don't remember anything else, on their research document, this is research components that the country's going in, right? So I'm gonna keep going here. The application review process, they're reviewed in panels, and the panels are broken down by group 1, group 2, group 3, and group 4. Now, really what they do is group 1 is undergrads, they do that one separate day, and then they lump 2, 3, and 4. The reason that I say that, when they lump 2, 3, and 4, oh my God, they can't remember who's second year, who's first year. And you got to have 5 peer-reviewed publications from Harvard. I mean, it's a tough competition once they start going, past undergrad. Not saying it's impossible, just saying that your statistics are much better if you apply, this year, or if you work for a year, make sure you apply before you take graduate classes. So here you go. Here's a little bit of the cheat sheet, right? They're gonna look at these 4 things. Now, if you notice the personal statement, research statement, it's only a couple of pages, so they only get so much. But where people really push on are the reference letters, okay? Again, I'm leaving this up as I talk, so you should read the slides as I talk, but I'm not saying what's in the slides, okay? One of the things to think about is I've given you, some insights of thinking about what is it that you have done personally that you can build upon, and what classes do you like that you can focus upon when you apply for this. There used to be this big deal of look out and call the schools you want to go to and what labs. I think right now, you really have it locked in here in Lincoln, that you really can reach out to Larry and say, hey, let me connect you with a different researcher. But also, I think your advisors, most of the advisors, the cadre, most of the cadre is very connected. We're all a little bit long in the tooth. No, we're not. I'm long in the tooth. I shouldn't say everybody looks young. But I think that we can connect you to researchers. And again, I'm very specific because some of these things I'm mentioning to you, if you try to figure out on your own, it's going to be very difficult. The whole leveraging that you have for the MATC scholars is you can ask these questions in the next 2 days and even next week. So I think it's important. Okay, now I'm gonna get on something that the key to the story, and no one talks about this. They won't tell you it's the truth. They'll say life is fair, kumbaya. I'm gonna tell you, one of the biggest ways you win this grant, this fellowship, is reference letters. Now, here's the deal. You can choose 5 reference letters, and the truth is, the people that they write the letters, they don't have to show you the letter before they upload it. Now, I'm gonna tell you this, that's dangerous. So don't just go ask somebody to write you a letter. This is not that, helter skelter. These letters are read intently. And in fact, I would say the letters are read actually more intently than the actual application, right? So I'm gonna say that number one, they're more detailed. They'll talk about they'll say, I met this person, their zeal towards understanding that graduate school is going to be focused and that the equipment they want to work with is here's the top scientists in these fields, and that they can really do certain things based on my interview with them or based on them working with us in the summer. So again, your REU experience, if you have that research experience for undergrad, any experience you have working in any lab while you were an undergrad, or any intern experience at a company, I'd be very careful of company letters, because most company letters are not considered at the same level that a researcher's letter. I'm going to say this in a nice way. If you have 3 letters, no more than one of those letters could be a kumbaya from your favorite mentor, right? What I mean by that, if your mentor is not doing research, or they're the what's it called, the undergrad advisor, you cannot have more than one of those, because that's just saying, I like him, he did well, he graduated, he must be okay. That's a kiss of death. You only get one of those. The other 2 have to be someone that's actively doing research that says, hey, this is where I think this person would fit in graduate school, and this is how this person will overall contribute to the STEM economy once they graduate in engineering, okay? Because again, you mess around, put business, it's deleted. You put, and I'm being very specific. No, most money is not dedicated to no more business people, law schools, or even medical doctors without a PhD. It's specifically to engineering. Okay, I'm gonna keep going. It's not the time. If you're gonna get a researcher, please spend an hour or 2 talking to them, looking up their research, asking research questions. If you just call and they say, I'm gonna write a letter for you because you seem like a nice, friendly person, you may get a popo letter, right? I said, when you get ready to get this support letter from a researcher, you need to look up the lab, look up their name, look up their papers, try to spell what they're writing, and really try to have a good conversation. Number one, it'll make your letter better. It'll make your application better. Number 2, it allows them to write a reference letter for you that really has some zeal. And so what I'm saying to you guys, I know, this whole intent has been talking about convincing you to go to grad school. I think you should. I think it's hands down you should go. But I also think when you get ready to write these fellowships and the applications, it needs to get real. And I say that because the way this fellowship program has worked, people have been turned down from Harvard and MIT and Stanford. They win this fellowship, guess what? Harvard, Stanford, and MIT take them in, because the application for the fellowship substitutes it makes your application for grad school just so much stronger anyway, because you've reached out to people. They now know that you want to be part of their network, part of their research network, and know that you've really thought through how to be successful. And so I strongly implore writing the application, because it does two things. It kills two birds with one stone. One, you write a good application for grad school. Number two, you're reaching out to professors before you go to grad school. At least if you show up, that's an easy A. He likes you before you show up. And you, well, maybe, I don't know. He may not like you before you show up. But I think that the reality is you're then preparing your mindset for going on to this next opportunity. And so I implore you to do that. So here are some resources for the GRP. And again, I'll give a sanitized version to Dr. Perkins to share. And then I'll stop here for some questions. Good luck. Again, as I said before, if you write the GRP fellowship, the next week the DODs do, next week is SDDAG. So you can just basically change the cover, and you can go to multiple fellowships. But the timeline for GRP is very consistent with all the national. If you're graduating or you're a junior, I think taking the time, you got the summer and you got all the way to October to apply. So this is the time to start thinking about it, putting it together, reaching out to, again, during this MATC conference, getting the names of faculty that you may want to reach out to as you start the process. Larry, I'll tell you this, I was very proud. Jim Lewis reached out to me to look at 2 GRP applications from Nebraska this year. I really didn't want to do it, but Jim used to be my old boss. So I gave them a few of these I don't think I gave them an hour. I gave them the same exact thing I just told you guys, and they both won. Well, no, one won and one got honorable mention. That's right. So I know my information is still at some level valid still, and they're at Nebraska. So I thought Larry, Jim Lewis, I don't know if you know Jim, but he was excited.
No, that's great.
So I'm gonna stop there. If you have any more questions, I'm open to them. And I'm really excited to present this to you guys, because I think the money's there for you. And again, I've been listening back and forth, and I don't mix words. I have 19 PhDs I've graduated, 42 master's thesis, and I have strong opinions. So don't take my opinion for gospel, but I have some strong opinions, because I don't think you mix the MBA with the Masters of Engineering. Okay, any questions, thoughts?
Yes, we do. Ms. Kiana, I saw your hand up, and then I saw Chica's hand up.
Okay, Chica was first.
Okay.
You can go, Mamas. I'm collecting my questions.
I was doing the same thing. That's why I called on you, but okay. Well, first I just want to say, Mr. Dr. Jones, yeah, that was me talking about the masses, but I just want to say you've completely debunked that idea. So I'm glad you said something on it. But I'm Kiana, and I'm a civil engineering junior at Tennessee State University. And one of my questions are, do all of your reference letters have to be from like civil engineering professors, or can they be from like professors that you've had earlier in your undergraduate career?
So the way let me answer this in the competition, okay? The way the competition is, you apply and you say, where do I want to go to grad school? And this is the natural order would be civil engineering program or environmental science. So it depends on which way you want to go for your degree. Wherever you're applying, just remember, those are the professors who are looking at your application. And so if you say, oh, I'm applying for a master's in civil, and the guy that wrote your letter was from, I don't know, polka art dancing, and they're gonna look at his name, and Dr. such and such and polka art dancing wrote a reference letter. How do you think that's gonna go over?
I guess not as well.
Not
what if it's
so
like physics?
Yeah,
like
well,
physics.
Even physics. Civil engineers don't like physicists. I'm just, you're making it too hard, right? If it's civil engineering and you're applying to civil engineering, now they don't all have to come from your school, okay? And that's why I'm saying you got, Dr. Rowlett has a center, you got 5 HBCUs and 2 HSIs. So you don't, this is where you get them connections. And even even your mentor in the cadre this week, he may say, or she may say, hey, I know somebody that may help you out. So I think, yes, it has to be in the field that you're probably going to apply to. And there has to, and they're going to validate your undergrad and say, well, hey, this school, she did take this course and I can see how she wants to expand that course. So, just remember, it's not about popularity. You can like everybody, but you want to win. And if you're applying for civil engineering and you have a civil engineering degree, it's really better that you get your reference letters validating that you are prepared to go to graduate school based on your undergrad civil engineering degree.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm sorry, I wish I could be flowery, but I want you to win, right? So.
Chika?
Yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Jones. This was a great presentation, and I took pictures, I wrote things down. Definitely going to try to apply. But I have 2 questions. The first one is, once you kind of decide or figure out who you want to reach out to kind of write your recommendation letters for you, how soon do you suggest you reach out to those people? And then my second question is, do you have to have applied to graduate school before applying for those fellowships?
Okay, so your first question is, again, because they're reference letters, I would reach out earlier, because it's not, a lot of people may not write it for you. What I mean is, you're reaching out and you're trying to interview them and they're interviewing you, right? And again, Kiana's question, I should have said too, if it's a school you want to go to and you want to find the research and the professor you want to work under, and reach out to them and just ask for an interview so that that you can understand what they're doing. Because 2 things I said in my presentation. Number 1, you're applying for the fellowship. You want to win that too. But if you reach out to me and I think that you actually got some gumption, I got a little bit of pull. If I see that you want to go to grad school and I really talked to you and I wrote your reference letter, number 1, you probably gonna get into my school because I got money. And number 2, if GRP don't fund you, guess who's gonna fund you?
You.
Right. So I'm saying this in a nice way that the process of doing this is going to actually give you, 1, insights on what you're going to do in graduate school. Number 2, it'll help you write a better letter application. But also, to be frank, you're getting a network of people that really want to see you succeed. So I think the reference letter, and I'll be frank, I can't guarantee, if you get contacted that they're going to write one for you. And that's one of the scary things I'll say. But I think that most faculty are just so impressed by someone that wants a reference letter that's outside their institution, that by doing that, you're really influencing them. And so I think I always want to say, you're reaching out to them for interviews so you can talk to them so that they've had a couple of conversations. And so when they write the letter, it's a very, very strong letter. And that letter won't just be for the GRP application. It'll be for all your fellowships and hopefully for that institution, because they're going to want to make sure that institution, 1, everybody wants a GRP winner. And number 2, they're going to be looking at, you had showed some real tenacity. Second question you asked, you said, so what was the second question again?
The second question was, do you have to apply to the graduate school or graduate program that you intend to go to? Because what if it's in the same university that you already getting your undergrad in?
Yeah, you know what? Because we have a couple of GRP winners that one is stay at their HBCU. I mean, and I laugh because I'm like, they're like, no, I want to stay where I'm at, and you can, that's fine. In fact, a couple of was it Jackson State, Tuskegee, and some others, they stay. I mean, which is exciting, to be very frank. and moves the prestige of HBCUs. And I'm really excited about that. So I think you don't have to actually apply. I think that you have to indicate which ones you'd want to go to. Now I'll check that question because it may have changed. I've been gone, 2 years. So, but you didn't have to actually apply to it. You had to actually have your application. But to be quite frank, the application is in October. So you probably would have applied to certain schools, right? Because look at the competition's October, you probably would have applied, coming up now, because we're taking applications now. So you don't have to, but you probably have. And if you get the fellowship, you don't have to go to the school you applied to go to.
Okay.
It's transferable. So that's the other thing. Say you applied, and you got the fellowship and you're sitting at Harvard, you can actually change and go to Stanford. So you can change. But again, generally, since it's October, you probably would have already applied.
Okay, and this is kind of just a follow-up question. So for the grant, does it last all the years that you are in that program, or do you have to apply for it every year?
No, it's 5 years.
Okay.
It's 5 years, but the money is only for 3. The way congressionally set it up, it's supposed to be partnering with LSAM.
Okay.
And so LSAM's 2 years. So if you had the GRP, you're supposed to go to the LSAM and get the other 2 years. If you guys are familiar with Lewis Stokes, it's been decoupled, the long story, but generally the 2-year gap is because it's a good thing if you're a PhD student to do a GTA. If it's 3 years and you're getting a master's, you'll finish probably within 2 years. So again, it's designed for if you went the PhD program, but it's also designed to supplement if you wanted more money to go onto your PhD. Then you have the Lewis Stokes and the NRT were designed to supplement the GRP program.
Okay, last question. I promise. I'm sorry. I was collecting my thoughts as you were speaking. But last question. So is it also transferable? So let's say you start at one. I don't know if you can do that, for graduate school, like how you can transfer undergraduates. If you start at one graduate school and choose to transfer to another school, does it follow you to those schools?
The money does, yes.
Okay. All right, cool. Thank you so much.
Do we have any other questions?
So Dr. Jones, when you say the GRP, is that considering like all national fellowship programs, or is that GRP just
GRFP is the National Science Foundation, but it was the originating fellowship program in the country. So the other programs, and I'm looking for I listed them out, they all have their own application process, but their application process is exactly the same it's not quite as bad as GRP. So what that means is if you write the GRP is the hardest one. Once you write the GRP, you can use the exact same application for others. I'm blowing my screen up now. These are the other ones: the National Defense Science and Engineering Graduate Fellowship, the Ford Foundation, Humane Studies. I know NASA has one. I even think the Eisenhower. Am I right, Larry? The Eisenhower. So if you write for the GRFP one, then generally you've already done enough for these other applications. We call it a gateway fellowship. That means you write for the hardest one, and then you apply for all of them. And so that's why I say, but you still physically have to apply for the other ones.
Okay, thank
you. I used to sit in a panel in DC, and we had all these different groups come, and clearly the GRP is the hardest one. But you could see most people submitted to the others, and it was funny because some people have won 3 or 4 at a time, and they sometimes are stackable, sometimes are not. Depends on the agency. But yeah, but the GRP is the earliest. So if you get that one done, then the others are in succession.
Anyone else? Well, I'm sorry, Dr. Jones. We want to thank you. One other thing I'd like to share with you guys about Dr. Jones, if you think with all his titles and and all positions he's held. He doesn't have any time. Add one more to it. He's the president of his own consulting company. So, so he has his hands in a number of different pots and doing well in all of them.